I didn't notice her at first. That's what haunts me. She was just sitting there, pale, silent, still. But the thing that made my chest tighten, the thing I couldn't explain, was that she never blinked. 20 seconds in, I was already uncomfortable. The kind of discomfort that sinks its teeth in slowly. You don't run. You stare. You wonder if you're seeing something you're not meant to. But it wasn't until I posted the video online that everything spiraled. Because someone commented, "She's always on the train." But there's no train anymore. That morning, I was running late for work, pounding down the rain-slick steps of Tufnell Park Station. The underground always smelled like wet concrete and old dust. But that day, the air was heavier, like a storm had passed through underground before I got there. I shoved my phone into my coat pocket and ducked into the Northern Line. The train was half empty, seats scattered with tired commuters and blinking phones. I sat near the back, headphones in but no music playing, out of habit, just white noise to pretend I wasn't listening. That's when I noticed her, 3 rows ahead, alone. She had this washed-out look, like she was dipped in chalk. Her hair was dark, slicked back. Her coat looked expensive but old, like something from a post-war film. But it wasn't her clothes that kept me frozen. It was her face. More specifically, her eyes. White, unmoving, unblinking. At first, I thought maybe she was in shock, or just spaced out. I've seen that blank stare before on people who've lost someone. But 5 stops later, she still hadn't blinked, still hadn't moved. No phone, no book, no shift in her breathing. Just that stare fixed slightly above eye level, like she was watching something hovering above all of us. That's when I started filming. Not for clout, just out of instinct. Because something inside me whispered, "You'll need proof later." I'll be honest. My hands were sweating as I recorded. I didn't know why. She hadn't done anything. But it felt wrong. Her presence felt like an intrusion into reality itself. Then something even stranger happened. The lights flickered, just once. But when they came back on, the woman's head was tilted. Not in a natural way. Her chin was angled slightly up, like she'd heard someone calling from above the carriage. But there had been no sound. I paused the recording. I needed air. Camden Town was the next stop, and I was getting off no matter what. Even if it meant being late again. I looked away from her just once. Just a second. And when I looked back, she was gone. Not moved to a new seat. Not walked past me. Just gone. I stayed rooted there for a full minute, eyes darting around, heart racing. Did anyone else see her? Did anyone notice she vanished? But no one looked up from their phones. Not a single person moved. I stepped off at Camden Town, my stomach churning like I just walked through an invisible wall. I opened my phone to review the footage, hoping I imagined the whole thing. She was there in the video, pale, quiet, unmoving. I zoomed in. Still no blinking. Still no breathing. Just watching. I uploaded it to my story with the caption, "This woman didn't blink once, then vanished." I didn't expect anyone to care. But within 20 minutes, my inbox exploded. I saw her last year. Same train. Same face. This is the Blitz ghost. My grandfather saw her during the King's Cross fire in '87. Dude, that's the old Northern Line. That carriage doesn't exist anymore. Then someone sent me a grainy black and white photo. The caption read, "Northern Line, 1973. Before the fire." My chest tightened as I looked closer. There she was, same woman, same coat, same face. And right there in the middle of the group photo, she wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking directly at me. And that's when I started hearing the whispers. Not in the comments. Not online. In the underground. Every time I stepped on a train. Faint. Breathless. Don't sit across from her. She sees what comes next. She's waiting. 3 hours after I posted the video, it deleted itself. I didn't do it. It wasn't flagged. It vanished like she did. But by then, people had already started sharing their own footage. Footage that shouldn't exist. Because in every one, she was wearing the same thing. She hadn't aged. And the trains she was on, Haven't been in service for decades. I tried to play it cool. Told myself it was a glitch. TikTok sometimes bugs out, right? Maybe it got removed for violating some blurry privacy guideline. But the moment I opened my phone gallery and found nothing, not even a trace, my stomach dropped. It wasn't just gone from social media. It was gone from my device. No thumbnail, no file, no deleted items folder. Just a blank spot where I knew it had existed. I checked the metadata. The most recent saved file was from 2 days ago. Like time itself had hiccuped. "You're not supposed to film her." That was the first message I got in my DMs after the video disappeared. No profile pic. No username I recognized. Just that one line. Followed by a second. "She doesn't like to be seen twice." And then the account vanished. I couldn't even screenshot it. By midday, my hands were shaking too badly to work. I took the rest of the day off, went back home, and sat in my flat with the lights on, blinds shut. I kept thinking, why me? Why did she look at me? Why did the video erase itself? It didn't feel like paranoia. It felt like surveillance. Like something was cleaning up a mess. At around 4:30 p.m., a stranger emailed me from a private server. No greeting. Just, "You saw her, didn't you?" They used to call her the Blitz Widow. I blinked at the screen, goosebumps crawling up my arms. The email went on. "She shows up right before something terrible. Fires, crashes, collapses. Always the underground. Always the same line. Northern. Look up the Moorgate crash. 1975. They say she was in the CCTV footage the night before. And they say someone tried to warn people. He died before the train even derailed." Attached was a compressed zip file labeled Survivor Notes _LDN. Against every instinct, I opened it. Inside were scanned pages of a journal. The first line punched me in the gut. "I thought I saw my wife today, but she died in 1941. Page after page was written by someone named Thomas Keegan, a maintenance worker for Transport for London in the late 70s. He described a woman appearing on platforms just before incidents. Always alone. Always wearing the same dark coat. Always staring, never speaking. They told me to stop asking. They told me it was just gas leaks making me hallucinate. But I kept seeing her. Always before something went wrong. Then one entry near the end stood out. "The trains are talking now. They hum at night. I hear her voice in the steel soft. Like soot. Like regret." I felt sick. Why was I the one seeing this? Why send it to me? Later that night, I joined a Reddit thread called r/London Paranormal. I posted my story, every detail. Within the hour, someone DM'd me with a grainy video link uploaded from an old camcorder. The file was titled Angel 1999. It was filmed from a train heading south. At first, nothing seemed strange, until the camera zoomed in on a reflection in the opposite window. Not a reflection of the passengers, but of her, sitting in the window outside the train, as if she was riding alongside it. Face pale, eyes unblinking, mouth moving. I played the clip back again and again, tried to isolate the audio. At one point, I could swear I heard her whisper, "He's going to do it again." That night I couldn't sleep. The wind outside my flat howled like something was clawing at the edges of the city. And just as I started to drift off, I heard a vibration. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. I answered before I could second-guess myself. Dead air. Then, a woman's voice. Soft. Distant. "Don't go south tomorrow. Stay off the train. He's already down there." Click. My hands trembled as I held the phone away, staring at the black screen. Who was he? And what would happen if I did go south? But the part that chilled me most? Her voice. It sounded wet, like it came from underwatered steel. Muffled, old, like it echoed from a tunnel no one was meant to return from. At exactly 6:06 a.m., the train doors sealed shut, and they didn't open again. The lights went black for exactly 21 seconds. When they flickered back on, she was sitting across from me, but no one else reacted. No one saw her but me. Or maybe They saw her and they just pretended not to. I should have listened. I should have stayed off the train. But the moment I got that call, I had to know. I had to see what happened if I ignored her warning. The next morning, I left my flat before sunrise. Adrenaline already flooding my veins like a silent alarm. The sky was the kind of dead gray that always hangs over London like a lid, and the streets were too quiet for a weekday. No birds, no buses, just the low mechanical hum of the waking city, like a machine turning in its sleep. At 5:50 a.m., I entered Kentish Town Station, and I swear, I felt watched the moment I stepped onto the escalator. Not by people, by the walls. The train arrived early, not 2 minutes before schedule 6. 6 o'clock on the dot. Southbound, Northern Line. The lights inside the carriage were dimmer than usual, almost yellow, like old hospital fluorescence. A dull haze clung to the windows, making everything outside look warped and distant, like the world I was leaving behind no longer mattered. I boarded anyway. Only 6 other people sat scattered across the carriage. Each of them looked detached, as if placed there by accident. No eye contact, no motion, no sound. I picked a seat near the back, next to the emergency door. The moment I sat down, the carriage door hissed closed behind me. Then the time on my phone changed. 6:06 a.m. I stared. The timestamp had jumped forward. And that's when the lights cut out. Pitch black. Not dim. Not flickering. But absolute void. My chest locked up. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. I reached for my phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on. The silence was the worst part. Not the kind of silence you expect on a train. This was deeper. Hollow. It was the kind of silence you hear in cathedrals built over tombs. Then a sound. The faint screech of fingernails brushing metal. Tap, tap, tap. Coming from the window. Not the inside. The outside. I pressed my palm to the glass. It was warm. Almost pulsing. A breath fogged the other side. And then, the lights snapped back on. That's when I saw her. Sitting 3 seats across. Facing me. Same dark coat. Same pale skin. Same wide, unblinking eyes. But something was different this time. Her mouth was open. Not moving, just parted. Like she'd been caught mid-scream, but frozen in time. A sound started bleeding through the carriage speakers. A crackling, warped voice. Male. Old. Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Mind the... He's below you. I looked down. The floor under my feet was changing. It wasn't solid anymore. It shimmered like oil on water. Shadows moved beneath it, forming shapes. A tunnel. A man. A scream. And her. Standing behind him. Watching. Always watching. I blinked, and it was gone. The floor returned. The lights flickered normal. But she was still there. Only now, she was pointing at me. Her hand lifted so slowly it made my skin crawl. Index finger extended. Direct. Absolute. And then her lips moved. Soundlessly. Just 3 words. You were warned. The train screeched as it pulled into Charing Cross. The doors finally opened. Flooded with light. People walked in, normal people. Like nothing had happened. Like the last 6 minutes hadn't warped reality. I turned to point at her. To prove she was real. But her seat was empty. Of course. I stumbled out, half sick, half hyperventilating. The air in the station tasted like ash. And in the distance I heard sirens. An announcement crackled over the loudspeaker. Due to an earlier incident, all southbound Northern Line trains will be delayed. Please check TfL updates. Earlier incident. But I had just arrived. There wasn't time for anything to happen. Unless it happened while we were in the dark. Outside the station, crowds gathered. Emergency services lined the curb. Fire trucks, police, an ambulance. I walked to the perimeter, tried to listen. Someone whispered behind me. Gas explosion, maybe? Collapsed ceiling, they said. No fatalities yet. And then, in the crowd, I saw her again. Not in the flesh. In the reflection of a bus window. Standing directly behind me. But when I turned, nothing. except a small scrap of black fabric on the ground. Old, burned, like a piece of coat from another era. That night, another email came through. No sender. No subject. Just a timestamp. Tomorrow. 6:46 a.m. Bank station. Don't run. At 6:46 a.m., bank station froze in time. The clock stopped ticking. The monitors blinked static. And every passenger around me stood completely still like statues, except one. She was walking toward me, and for the first time since this began, she blinked. I didn't sleep that night, not even close. I kept staring at that email. Those cold, clinical words burned into my mind. Tomorrow, 6:46 a.m. bank station. Don't run. No explanation. No plea. Just a command. Don't run. And yet every part of my body was screaming to do the opposite. What kind of message ends like that? What happens if I do run? What happens if I don't? By 6 a.m., I was already walking toward Bank Station, an ancient artery beneath the city, older than it looks, older than most remember. People think Bank is just another station, but it's not. The architecture whispers if you listen hard enough. The corridors shift ever so slightly when you're alone, and the temperature drops with no warning, like something behind the walls just exhaled. And there's something else, something few people know. Bank sits directly atop a network of sealed-off tunnels, old air raid shelters, abandoned wartime transport routes. Some aren't even mapped anymore, because the people who built them, they never came back. I passed through the turnstile at 6:41 a.m. Everything felt off, too quiet, even for early morning. The usual buzz of announcements, feet slapping tile, papers rustling, gone. Instead, I heard dripping. From the ceiling? No. From beneath the grates in the floor. Like something wet and alive was breathing underneath the platform. I checked my phone. 6:45 a.m. 1 minute. As I stepped onto the southbound platform, time broke. I mean that literally. The digital clocks froze. Mid-tick. 6:46 a.m. And then nothing. The monitor above me flashed static for a second, then displayed something I'll never forget. She is here. My stomach turned ice cold. I spun around, and that's when I realized no one was moving. Not the man in the trench coat sipping coffee. Not the woman scrolling through her phone. Not the cleaner pushing his cart. They were all frozen. Eyes open, chest still, breathless. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing off the curved tile walls. Boom, boom, boom. And then, footsteps. Deliberate. Slow. Not behind me. Ahead. From the tunnel. The one the train usually comes out of. And there she was, emerging from the shadows like a memory that refused to stay buried. Same coat. Same unblinking stare. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her walked 5 more figures. Blurred. Unclear. Dressed in tattered clothing from different eras, 1940s, 1960s, 1980s. Each with eyes wide open and mouths sealed shut. Like they'd seen something they were never meant to speak of. She walked straight toward me, each step echoing louder than the last. The world around us remained frozen, as if time itself had bowed to her presence. My legs wanted to run. My brain screamed to move. But her voice stopped me. For the first time ever, she spoke aloud. You're not one of them. Her voice wasn't echoey or ghostly. It was flat, precise, British, educated, but empty, like it had been borrowed. He walks the tunnels now, searching. She pointed downward, to the ground beneath my feet. He doesn't remember his face anymore, just the screams, just the fire. I wanted to speak, but my throat was locked, dry, frozen, until I choked out, "Who is he?" Her eyes narrowed. For the first time ever, she blinked. The man who built the fire, but stayed to watch it burn. And then she reached toward my chest. Her fingers grazed my jacket. Suddenly, images poured into my head. Flashbacks, but not mine. A man, covered in soot, trapped in a tunnel, screaming names, dropping matches onto spilled fuel. Women and children pressed against locked gates, pounding, crying, their screams drowned by the sound of rushing trains. And above them all, she watched, not helpless, not horrified, but waiting, like this was inevitable, like this was justice. I collapsed to my knees. The vision ended. She knelt beside me. You're marked now. You know the route. You've heard the metal speak. And you've seen what comes before. I croaked. Before what? She leaned closer, her breath ice-cold on my ear. Collapse. Then, boom, the lights burst. Sparks flew. Everything returned in a blink. Noise, movement, chaos. People gasped. The man with coffee spilled it. The cleaner swore. They had no idea that time had just skipped. But I did. And as I turned back, she was gone. Except a smear of bloody fingerprints trailed down the tiled wall behind where she stood. And written in those prints, next stop, Elephant and Castle. I took the stairs out of the station, breath ragged, body trembling. My phone buzzed. One notification. An audio message. From my number. I didn't send it. Played it. The sound was distorted underwater. But one word was clear. Run. At Elephant and Castle, the train never stops. It slows, but never fully opens its doors. Except this morning, the doors opened just for me. No one else got off. No one else moved. And as I stepped onto the platform, I realized the platform wasn't real. It wasn't even part of this time. It started before I even left my flat. At exactly 4:44 a.m., every device I owned, phone, TV, laptop, turned on at once. The same message on every screen. She waits where he ended. And below it, Elephant and Castle. 7:03 a.m. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. I hadn't spoken it out loud. Still, something or someone knew, and they wanted me there. Elephant and Castle. If you live in London, you know it's a strange station. People joke about how cursed it feels. The curved tunnels, the flickering lights, the echoes that don't match your footsteps. But the truth is darker. It was built over a war shelter that caved in during World War II. The bodies were never recovered. Rumor has it, some never died properly, because they were already forgotten. And now, I was going down there. By 6:58 a.m., I stood at Kennington Station, boarding the southbound train. Same line, same route. Everything felt quieter than usual. Even the announcements felt muffled, like they were being spoken through water. I counted the stations, one by one. Moorgate, London Bridge, Borough, then Elephant and Castle. The train slowed, and for the first time in years, the doors opened wide. Just for me. No one else moved. Not a blink. Not a breath. I stepped off alone. The platform was dim. Too dim. There were no ads. No signage. No map. Only cracked white tiles, rusted metal rails, and her. She stood at the far end. Back turned. Still. Waiting. And then I noticed the tunnel beside her. A sealed-off route, bricked over decades ago. Except today, it wasn't sealed. The bricks were gone. Replaced by a gaping black corridor, pulsing with heat. And she stepped inside. Without looking back. My instincts screamed to leave. But I couldn't. I had to know. I followed. Inside the tunnel, there was no light. None. But somehow I could still see. Shapes. Figures. Charred walls. Ash hanging like mist. Melted signage with dates burned into them. March 3rd, 1943, Bethnal Green disaster. February 28th, 1975, Moorgate crash. King's Cross fire, 1987. All tragedies. All with unexplained phenomena. All with her reported in the background. The deeper I went, the louder the voices became. They weren't speaking. They were crying, begging, praying. Children, mothers, workers, trapped in the past, screaming into tunnels no one had walked in decades. And then, I saw him, a man, crouched in the center of the tracks, face hidden in his hands, soot covering his skin like a second layer. Whispers spun around him like smoke. He lit the fire. He locked the doors. He said it was mercy. He turned slowly. His face wasn't burned. It was missing. A blur of motion, like trying to remember a dream you were never supposed to have. And he said, I had to see it end. Then he lunged. Not at me, but at her. And she didn't flinch. She let him reach for her. Let him scream in her face. And when his hands passed through her like mist, he fell to his knees, sobbing, whispering, You never die, do you? You just watch. She looked down at him, then at me. And for the first time, I understood. She's not a ghost. She's not a woman. She's not even dead. She's a witness, a fixed point, an echo of consequence, a presence that only appears when a tragedy must happen. Not to stop it, not to cause it, but to remember it, to preserve it, like the underground has its own memory, and she's the one who keeps it alive. The tunnel began to collapse behind us. Not stone, time. The memories were folding in on themselves, collapsing into something new, or something older. She stepped forward and whispered in my ear, You've seen too much. Then she pressed her hand to my chest, and everything froze. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting on a bench. Broad daylight, outside Elephant and Castle Station. No burns, no blood, no tunnel. But in my lap was an old train ticket, dated March 3rd, 1943. One way, Bethnal Green. The backside read, We all return where it ended. And my phone? Wiped. No photos, no calls, no messages, except one new notification. From an app one don't remember installing. TFL incident logs. Restricted access. It opened to a blank screen with a loading bar. And a single word. Next. My phone shouldn't have internet underground. But the passenger log updated anyway. It showed trains that haven't run in over 50 years. And names, so many names, including mine, next to a train that hasn't arrived yet. Time of departure, 11:11 p.m. Time of arrival, unknown. I didn't know what I was expecting when I tapped the app. Maybe an error. Maybe nothing. Maybe another glitch to convince me I was losing my mind. But the moment it opened, the screen dimmed. The loading bar disappeared, and in its place came a flickering dashboard of names. Names I didn't recognize. Hundreds, maybe thousands, scrolling like code across a void black background. Each line was identical in structure. Name, station boarded, time, status. At first, I thought it was a simulation, a mock-up of fake train data, until I saw Bank, 6:46 a.m., beside the name Thomas Keegan. The same name from the scanned journal entries. The same man who saw her decades ago. Beside his name, under status, it read, Withdrawn, echo retained. What does that even mean? Withdrawn from where? Echo retained? The app froze, then refreshed. And that's when I saw my own name. Callum Ross, Elephant and Castle. 7:03 a.m. in transit. I didn't input anything. Didn't create an account. Didn't opt in. And yet there I was. Logged. Marked. Tracked. Beneath it, a flickering message appeared like a warning. Time is no longer linear below. My breath caught, because that confirmed everything I'd felt in the tunnels. Time bent down there. It looped. It bled. And it remembered. Then something new loaded, something worse. A new page called Known Recurrence. Only 7 names on the list. Thomas Keegan. Lillian Stone. Marcus Doyle. R.E. Farrow. Unknown. The Witness. He Who Returns. Callum Ross. My name. At the bottom. In red. I tapped it. The screen went black. Then one phrase appeared. Final journey. Initiated. And that's when I knew. This wasn't over. This was only just beginning. I barely slept that night. I kept waking up at 11:11 p.m., drenched in sweat, hearing train doors open and close somewhere in my flat. And always, the faint sound of footsteps pacing above the ceiling, even though I lived on the top floor. The next morning, I opened the passenger log again. One new entry had been added. Next boarding, 11:11 p.m., Holborn Loop. Duration, One memory length. One memory length? What the hell does that mean? I started researching Holborn Loop. Turns out it's a real place, an abandoned portion of the underground. Once used to reverse trains, now sealed off. They say no one's allowed down there anymore. No cameras. No maps. Just concrete and the sound of lost trains echoing back through time. But here's the part that stopped me cold. Holborn Loop is where the 1943 Bethnal Green evacuees were supposed to reroute to before the panic stampede killed 173 people. It was meant to save them. It never opened. And now, that's where I'm being called. At noon, another update came through. This time, in a message, disguised as a transport for London push notification. Delay reported on Holborn Loop due to residual echo retention. Proceed with memory containment protocol. One recurrent approaching threshold. What is echo retention? Why is memory containment even a phrase in this system? Unless we aren't passengers. We're recordings. Memories the city holds onto. And some of us are beginning to wake up inside it. That night I went back to Holborn. There's no way into the loop, at least not officially. But the maintenance lift behind the westbound stairs had a keypad entry box, painted over and worn down. My hand moved on its own. I typed 1943. The box clicked open. Inside, a stairwell led downward. No signs, no lights, just a cold draft that smelled like coal and rotted fabric. And at the bottom, a door. Carved into the metal was a phrase scratched over and over again, like a prayer or a curse. She doesn't stop fires. She preserves them. I pushed it open. The Holborn Loop is not abandoned. It's alive. The tracks hum like a living thing. The tunnel curves in ways that defy geometry. And the walls bleed memories like leaking pipes. I saw her again, standing beside an ancient bench, surrounded by flickers of people who weren't fully there. Men in 1940s hats. A mother holding a child who kept flickering in and out. An elderly man clutching his chest, mid-collapse, frozen in time. They all turned toward me in unison, and she said, "This is where we keep them. The echoes, the regrets, the screams that never finished." I whispered, "Why me?" She didn't answer. Instead, she held up a charred train ticket. The same kind I'd found in my lap earlier. Only this one read, "Final station. Do not exit." Behind her, a train arrived with no sound. Doors open. No driver. No destination. She nodded toward it. All memories board eventually. And then she blinked, twice, and vanished. The train had no number, no map, no markings. Its doors opened into a place that didn't match the tunnel. And every seat was already occupied by people who weren't breathing. I should have stepped back. I should have run. But I stepped inside. And the moment I did, I remembered something I was never supposed to know. It wasn't like boarding a train. It was like stepping into a memory that didn't belong to me. The carriage interior was faded, like a black and white film. Dust hung in the air like mist. The seats were filled with passengers, silent, unmoving. But these weren't statues or hallucinations. They were echoes, stuck in an infinite loop of their final moments. Some stared blankly ahead. Some clutched family photos. One man had his hands over his ears, eyes wide with terror, as if he'd heard something none of us ever would. And at the very back, she sat, still, waiting, watching, not blinking, not breathing, just existing, like a gravity well that held everything together. I didn't sit. I didn't need to. The moment the doors shut, the world outside vanished. Not moved, not blurred, vanished. Like we were no longer underground, or anywhere at all. The windows showed scenes that didn't belong to any known route. A street filled with people screaming silently in reverse. A hospital corridor frozen mid-evacuation. An escalator choked with smoke. Unmoving bodies still clinging to the handrails. They were memories, not mine, but they were somehow being played through me. Like the train was using me as its projector. That's when I noticed something new. Every so often, a passenger would disappear. Their form would flicker, then dissolve into light. The seat would go cold. and in their place a piece of old luggage or a burned photo or a scorched ticket would be left behind. They were departing, not escaping, not dying again, just ending. And the train kept going. Somewhere between time and memory, the lighting changed. A red hue filled the carriage, the kind you only see in emergencies. It pulsed, slowly, like a heartbeat. I turned toward her. She spoke finally, not to me directly, to the carriage, to the passengers. "He's almost here, the one who remembers too much." Then her eyes locked onto me. "You're the first living one to stay this long. That makes you dangerous." I tried to ask why me, but she cut me off. "Because you didn't just witness the memory, you bled into it." Suddenly, the carriage lights sparked. The floor shook. Sparks danced across the windows. And with a deep howl, the entire train derailed. But not like any normal train. We didn't crash. We unraveled. The walls pulled apart like smoke. The ceiling fractured into moving shadows. Seats broke into fragments of film reels, showing lives, deaths, decisions. A boy hiding under a stairwell as bombs fall. A woman running for the last train she never boarded. A maintenance worker lighting a match, then dropping it. Every passenger on the train was tied to one memory. Their final moment. The thing they regretted most. And then, I saw mine. A small screen hovered in the broken smoke, playing something I hadn't seen in years. Me, age 16, standing at the edge of the platform watching a girl crying. She was frantic, panicked, shouting something. People passed her, ignored her, and I just walked away. 2 hours later, she jumped. They called it a suicide, but I'd seen it. I'd heard her begging. I never told anyone, not even myself. "Now you know. Now you've earned your seat." Her voice was behind me, and when I turned, the seat beside mine had changed. It wasn't dusty or faded. It was fresh, empty, waiting. "Every survivor leaves something behind," she whispered. "You leave guilt. That's your ticket." I sank into the seat, my legs giving out. The train moved again, but this time it was backwards. The windows now showed real events. From history, from London's darkest hours. Moorgate 1975. The driver never slowed down. Dozens dead. King's Cross 1987. A lit match ignites years of neglect. Bethnal Green 1943. A single scream causes a stampede. 173 crushed. And in every scene, she was present. Sometimes in a reflection. Sometimes in a crowd. Always watching. Never preventing, just recording, like the underground's memory made flesh. And then the man appeared again, the faceless one, the one from the tunnel, the one who screamed at her. He boarded the train from the smoke like a demon slipping through film. But now he had eyes, eyes made of burning embers. No face, just the fire of his own mistake. He pointed at me. "You watched her fall, and you did nothing. You deserve this ride." I screamed. I stood, but the train kept going. She raised her hand. Everything stopped. "Not yet," she said. "He still thinks he's alive." Then she leaned into me. "When the loop ends, you'll understand your stop." And suddenly, the doors opened. Back at Holborn. Midday. Sunlight through the stairwell. People walking. And just like that, I was back. Back in the world. But not the same. My phone buzzed. A new update. "Ready. There's a station in London no one speaks of. It's not on any map. No arrivals. No departures. But it's there beneath all the others. And when the loop breaks, that's where the last train always goes. They call it the station that forgot to close." And now, I was headed there. There was no getting back to normal after that ride. After the train. The faces. The memories I'd buried. The girl I left behind. Every sound of brakes screeching. Every flicker of a tube map screen. Every shadow that lingered too long in the corner of my eye. It all pointed back to her. And then the app, the passenger log, updated again. One final destination. No choice. Passenger. Callum Ross. Status. Unresolved. Route. Terminal Memory Route Station closed in 1963. The name of the station? Redacted. Blacked out. But not erased. That night, I found an old maintenance blueprint online. One archived on a digital forum for train enthusiasts and ghost hunters. Buried in the notes of a post-war expansion document was a footnote. Construction halted on 1963's Loop 7 after psychological disturbances reported by crew. Section now sealed. Station name withheld. See Recurrent Report number 11. Loop 7. I recognized the pattern. The main lines ran through public history. But Loop 7? It was where the city kept what it couldn't explain. She wasn't haunting the underground. She was part of it. It was almost midnight when I returned to Holborn. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Didn't text. Didn't post. Part of me believed if I told anyone, they'd start seeing her too. I found the same hidden stairwell. Keypad glowing. Waiting. This time I didn't need to enter a code. It opened on its own. The tunnel was darker than before. More decayed. The air was thick. Like walking through breath that didn't belong to me. And then I saw the train. Waiting. Lights dim. Doors open. But this wasn't the black and white ghost train. It was newer. Modern. But completely empty. Too clean. Too silent. I stepped inside. And immediately the lights died. When they flickered back on, I wasn't on the train anymore. I was on a platform. A station I'd never seen before. And carved into the wall, above a rusted map, were the words, Memory Terminal opened never. Closed forever. And beneath that, scratched in what looked like burned fingernails, no one exits clean. The place looked like a time graveyard. Posters from 1941 curled and torn. A modern CCTV camera pointed downward, blinking with no light. An abandoned pram sat in the middle of the floor, rocking ever so slightly. And all around me, passengers. Hundreds. Thousands. But none were moving. They stood on the platform, staring, frozen, as if waiting for a train that would never come. Some had suitcases. Some clutched diaries. One held an oxygen mask. They weren't ghosts. They were remnants. People whose stories were interrupted. Cut off. Never told. Never closed. This station was where unfinished lives came to rest. Then the PA system buzzed. But it didn't speak in words. It screamed. A high-pitched, layered shriek of every scream I'd ever ignored. Voices I didn't want to remember. Sounds I'd buried under excuses. I dropped to my knees, covered my ears. And when it stopped, she was standing in front of me, no longer in her coat, no longer pale and still. She looked human, eyes tired, face aged, hair wild, streaked with soot and ash. She sat beside me on the cracked platform. They think I am death. I'm not. I'm memory, the one who stays when everyone else runs. I turned to her. Why show me all this? She nodded toward the passengers. Because some of them only existed in a blink. Someone must remember the blink. I looked around. What is this station? She stood. And now, behind her, the name finally revealed itself. The rusted sign overhead, cleaned by time itself. St. Olivia's Cross. I felt it stab through me. That name. Olivia. The girl I left on the platform. The girl whose voice I ignored. That's when I saw her. Not the witness. Her. Olivia. 17. Tear-stained cheeks. Standing on the other side of the tracks. Still waiting for help. I ran toward her. I screamed her name. But the moment I stepped onto the rails, everything stopped. Back on the platform. The station gone. And I was in my flat. Morning light bleeding through the windows. My phone beside me. No app. No passenger log. No record. Just one charred train ticket on the floor. The name faded. But one word remained. Remember. And I do. Every day. I take the train. I walk the platforms. I look at the faces of those crying, silent, scared. And now I see them. Because I know now. Every ignored voice becomes an echo. Every dismissed cry becomes a station no one closes. And some passengers, they never leave. Because no one ever remembered they were there. Until now. They say Platform Zero doesn't exist. No signs, no maps, no trains. But if you look closely, every major station has one, hidden behind shadows and sealed doors. It's where the memories that don't fit go. And tonight, I saw my own name etched into the wall, right next to hers. Days passed, but I wasn't back to normal. Not really. The real world was moving again. People in suits rushing across marble floors, tube announcements echoing the same automated voices. But for me, it all felt hollow, because something was still pulling at me, like a whisper beneath the rumble of the trains, a pattern in the flicker of the tube map. My journey wasn't over. I hadn't answered the final question. Why me? Why did the passenger log mark my name? And what happens when your memory is finally done playing? Came the next night, 1:11 a.m. A push notification on my now silent phone. No app, just raw data. Platform Zero boarding now. One final entry required. Passenger, Callum Ross. And below it, a destination I'd never seen before. Return. I went to King's Cross, because of course it had to be there, where the walls sweat heat from the 1987 fire, where footsteps echo just too long, where one lift still skips a floor no one talks about. I found it. Beneath the northbound escalators, where workers were too scared to clean, was a rusted gate. No lock, no sign, just a metal plaque that read, Platform Zero, for those left behind. And scratched beneath it, once boarded, memory becomes legacy. I stepped inside. Platform Zero wasn't made of bricks. It was made of stories. The floor pulsed with the echoes of every name never announced. The walls were scrawled with train times from moments of panic, disasters never publicly recorded. People were here, passengers, but not like the others. These were real, living, people who shouldn't have died. People who disappeared, people marked missing, unknown, presumed lost. And they all turned toward me, as if I'd joined them, as if I'd been one of them all along. Then the lights dimmed, and the train arrived. It wasn't a train, not really. It was everything I'd avoided. Its windows showed the moment Olivia looked at me, on that platform, begging someone, anyone, to care. The moment I turned away, the train screeched to a halt. And the doors opened. Inside, every seat had a name. My parents. My first friend who vanished after school. My former teacher who never came back after summer. And Olivia. All names I'd passed by without question. All now waiting. The witness was already aboard. Silent. No longer cold. Just tired. And beside her was a final plaque. One that hadn't existed until this moment. Passenger Ross C. Emotional retention. Complete. Story preserved. She finally spoke. Do you understand now? That I wasn't chosen? I asked. That I was just watching? She nodded once. You remembered. That's all we ever needed. The underground forgets nothing, but it can't speak. We are its voice. And someone must always remember the ones who vanished in silence. The doors began to close. I stepped back. I'm not going, I said. I'm staying. I'll tell their stories. Every last one. And she smiled. For the first time. A sad, tired smile. The kind you only see at the end of very old films. She raised her hand. And just before the train pulled away, Olivia turned and whispered, "Thank you." Then gone. No sound. No heat. Just a sudden stillness. I awoke on the concourse floor. A guard was shaking me, asking if I was all right. I nodded, but something had changed. I walked home in silence, and outside my door was a parcel. No address, no return label. Inside was a folded train ticket, burned at the edges. A map of the London Underground with one new line, drawn in red. And a handwritten note. There is no Platform Zero, but there are people who remember it. Now you are one of them. I never saw her again. The witness, Olivia, the passenger log. But sometimes, when a train slows unexpectedly, or a light flickers before a tunnel, or a passenger stands too still, I I remember everyone. If you want more chilling true crime stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the Veil of Secrets.